Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic Thursday. And this is another episode of the Reach Films podcast. So I did plan on doing a live episode yesterday. Yes, we are live. And I couldn't get to it, but we have a lot on the docket today. And I'm going to actually discuss why I couldn't get to this episode yesterday. It has a little bit to do with the Mini 3 Pro and some stuff that happened. But on today's schedule, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the Mini 3 Pro, some things to do with the prop replacement and why the whole system stinks on the new Mini 3 Pro and may be the same on the Mini 3. We're also going to discuss Blackmagic and how there are rumors that they have joined the L-mount alliance and what that could mean, because Blackmagic has had a habit of repurposing a lot of their, I say older sensors, but it's their most recent 6K sensor, which is not very recent anymore. They've been repurposing that a lot. And I think there's some options they could still do even with repurposing the Blackmagic 6K sensor. And then, of course, we're also going to talk about the A6700, the big Sony camera of the week. It's a crop sensor camera. It is the FX30 missing a few features and then given a few features as well for $400 less. So we'll discuss that as well. Also, if you're here and you're joining me live, make sure to let me know in the chat, say hi. If you're listening to this podcast after the fact, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and you could check these out live when we are so. I've got my trusty coffee right here. And so without further ado, let's get started. So yesterday, I was supposed to go live and I missed it by hours because I ran into an issue trying to change out the props on my DJI Mini 3 Pro. Now, I was actually making a video on how to change the props at the same time. And it's funny because I stopped recording when I hit a snag where, as you can see, I changed all the props. I'm actually using master air screw props. Let's see if I change over to this camera. Doesn't really look too much better, but oh yeah, and even that shade not better, but changed over to the master air screw props, and they definitely seem a lot more solid than the base DJI ones, which I have right here actually. Now I changed them because for whatever reason in the DJI app, it said that my total flight hours on my Mini 3 Pro were over 100, which turned out not to be true. That was an error in the system, but it said I had 100 hours, actually 107 hours. And then it said I had like 700 and something flights. And it seemed a little too crazy to be true, but this is the DJI prop. See if it'll pull it up on the autofocus right here. I put it in front of my face. Maybe it won't while I'm live streaming, but this is the DJI prop. And the DJI props are rated. They said DJI says to change them every like 3 to 6 months. Or 100 hours. And when it's been over a year since I got the DJI Mini 3 Pro, and it said I had over 100 hours. So I decided, you know what, let's change these out. But every time I've had a drone for over a year, I typically change them out for the master air screw ones because they're just a little bit more sturdy. And to even push that point, and I'm not sponsored by them by any means, I went and bought them on Amazon. They're pretty affordable. I ran into an issue changing out these props, which is kind of the whole story. And this prop is in good condition. I didn't do anything to it. It came out easy. But a lot of the props, I just could not get the screw out. The Loctite was just too far in. And these little screws holding these props in are really small. Even so, too small for the included screwdriver that DJI gives you to remove them. In doing more research, I see that it's actually a common problem. A lot of people are having an issue removing their props, and it's really due to the Loctite that's in every screw. Sometimes, especially if you've had these screws in for over a year, they may have been screwed in too tight from the factory and then expanded whatever when they heat up, and it's caused an issue removing these. So I literally had to grab a plier and I had to first I had to literally cut off part of the wings with a scissor, which I didn't even know these were soft enough to be cut with a scissor. So they are. And then I had to take pliers and I literally had to ply the plastic off of this piece that the screw goes to enough to where I could literally ply the screw out and unscrew the screws. Now, luckily, it took 3 hours, which is why I missed yesterday's podcast, but I was able to change all of the props. And then I went out and flew made sure that this thing was actually safe to fly, brought the drone back, checked all the screws, made sure it was good to go, because I do have a gig on Monday that does require me to use a drone. So I needed to make sure that was all sorted, and that's why I missed the episode. But I'll be talking more in a future video about prop replacement and what to look for. But it's interesting that this is the first drone from DJI I've ever had an issue replacing the props. They've actually been fairly easy to do in the past, which really surprised me when I sat down to go do this whole video, and it was just a huge pain to do. So like next time I have to do the prop replacements, I'm not looking forward to it, because I already messed with some of these screws to see, and it's going to be just as hard. And it seems like it's a design with the screws, and the fact that they use Loctite, which they should use Loctite, prevents the screws from coming out, but it just makes these really hard to come out, which leads me to believe, I think they think most people who buy this DJI Mini 3 Pro, the DJI Mini 3, they're probably going to use the props that come with it for the lifetime they have the drone before they crash it or whatever. And they probably assume people are only going to change the props if they crash them. So it was interesting. It was a whole saga yesterday. It killed not half of my day, but a good portion of my day. And obviously it took all the love of me wanting to go live out of yesterday. So I'm sorry that I didn't make it live. But that was the first issue that I ran into. Just to say hey to everyone who's in the chat. We got greetings from the Seattle area. Hey, Fred, how you doing? We've got Soto Cine. Hello from Germany, hometown of Leica. Ooh, thank you for joining us today. I know it's a little earlier today. I'm actually heading out of town tonight, and I didn't want to miss the stream again. So I decided to kind of knock this out nice and early today. Also, let me know if you can hear me good. I haven't gone live in a while because I use the A10 Mini Pro, and I've been having issues with StreamYard in the A10 Mini Pro, which really was a big bummer. And it's why I haven't been doing as many streams. Although the FX30 can stream out of the camera itself via its USB-C, I don't like the quality quite as much as being able to go into the A10 Mini. I can't get the LUTs that I have in the camera to show out. It's just some base Rec 709, and I like the image I get when I do it straight out of the FX30 through the HDMI. So that's what I am using today. So let's talk about some of the other stuff. So there's a rumor that Blackmagic has joined the L-mount Alliance. And it's an interesting rumor, because that would mean that if they did join the L-mount Alliance, they could start using the L-mount on their future cameras and pretty much not have to use the EF mount. Definitely not use the Micro Four Thirds mount, because dare I say it, I don't necessarily think it's a dead mount, but I think it's a lot smaller than it was, no pun intended, than even 10 years ago. A lot smaller of a user base. So with them going L-mount, it allows them to start using mirrorless lenses, which was the huge reason why I moved to the Red Komodo from the pocket cameras, because as great as it is to have an EF lens mount, we're now at the time where as long as you have a mirrorless mount, you can adapt and electronically adapt to EF lenses. So where I see this going with the title is I could actually see Blackmagic finally repurposing their old 6K sensor, because it seems like that's what they're really good at, and putting that in a micro cinema camera body with an L mount. Now, if they do that, that is kind of the camera that a lot of Blackmagic users have wanted, and it's kind of why a lot of us went to the Komodo, because it's kind of what we got with the Komodo, but the Komodo is an RF mount. So it would be interesting to see if Blackmagic did that, because they don't have to invest in making a new sensor. They would have to invest in a new body, but I'm sure, look, even though it's 13 stops, a lot of the modern cameras have more than 13 stops now. Even this Sony FX30, a crop sensor, has 14 plus stops. However, the Blackmagic image still looks great. And there's a lot of people who are in the Blackmagic ecosystem. So having a micro cinema camera, 6K, with that 6K resolution, with that really nice image quality, but being able to have the L mount and use the mirrorless lenses, especially all of the mirrorless anamorphic lenses that have come out in the past few years, I think it would really step up Blackmagic's game. And then, of course, with being L mount, they could do full frame cameras. They could start coming out with new versions of the Ursa that are full frame. So there's a lot of opportunities. So I'm interested to see where Blackmagic goes. What do you guys think? Where do you think Blackmagic's going to go if they have joined the L mount alliance? Because I think it would be very interesting. Now, let's also talk about the A6700 versus the FX30. Now, this is an interesting situation. We kind of heard the rumors of this coming for a long time now. And we heard that, Sony was going to come out with an FX30 in a smaller body that was cheaper, maybe geared more towards content creators. And they kind of did with the A6700. The short list, before I get into any like super specs, if you are a content creator who does not need, long recording times, or you're a hybrid shooter and you want to be in the APS-C family, you're somebody who wants to have the smallest setup possible, and again, you don't care about record times, or you're a content creator that needs help filming, that's where I think the A6700 is going to make a lot of sense for a lot of content creators, photographers, people, again, who don't need long record times. And I'll get to that in a second. But where the FX30 makes a lot of sense now, because now it's not the only, 10-bit camera in Sony's crop sensor ecosystem, is if you're a professional videographer, you may be using this on higher end productions as like a B, C, or D camera. The FX30 makes a lot more sense because it's got a fan, so you have unlimited record times, especially at 4K 120 frames. You have the full-size HDMI port, which I think a lot of people underestimate. I actually think it doesn't matter that the A6700 does have a micro HDMI port and does not have a full size. And the reason being is I think a lot of the people who are going for the A6700 are not going to use their HDMI port as much as FX30 users. The other thing is, with having a full-size HDMI, you're more likely, if you forget an HDMI or you need one for whatever reason, to find a full-size HDMI on set, on the production that you're working on, than you are to find a micro. But that's why I think a lot of professional video content, if you're into video production in general, whether that's you're a videographer, you're doing high-end cinematography, you're doing content creation, but that's what you do. You live and you breathe video no matter what. You don't need photos. You don't need a lot of the special AI tools that's in the A6700, like the auto reframing, which is pretty cool. Then I think that's where the FX30 still makes sense for a lot of people. So you kind of have this camera that's a really great hybrid all-around camera, I should say, which is the A6700. And then you have this video camera that's the FX30 that's really good in all aspects of video, whether you need regular video, slow motion, whatever. I guess that's another point. If you need slow motion and you live and breathe slow motion video, I think the FX30 is going to make a lot more sense. And it all comes down to the last point I have about the differences between the cameras, and that's going to be overheating. Now, the A6700 is a lot smaller than the FX30, or it's smaller than the FX30. Let's go there. It's got an EVF, which the FX30 doesn't have. Video shooters like me, it doesn't really matter. It's got a higher resolution display. So the FX30's got a lot more for video shooters. But because the A6700 doesn't have a fan, if you're shooting in the 4K, the main mode that everyone tested that does overheat very quickly is the 4K 120p mode. So if you shoot that a lot, or you want to shoot that a lot, the FX30 is going to make a lot more sense, unless you're shooting in very short spurts. The 4K 60 mode can overheat as well, but it takes longer. Again, if you shoot the 4K 60 mode, you live and breathe that, the FX30 is probably going to make a lot more sense. And then a lot of the reports were coming out saying that 4K 24p doesn't overheat in that camera. Now, part of the reason I want to get my hands on the A6700 is I want to test that. Being here in Florida, we are really hot, really humid. So if I'm out there recording for a long period of time, I could really put that camera to the test. So all this being said, I will get my hands on an A6700, and I will do a comparison against the FX30 and a review on the A6700 as well. I've just been waiting to get an available slot. So do stay tuned for that. Now, otherwise, that's pretty much it. I have all I have for today's episode. Nice, quick. Figured I'd kind of give you guys a news roundup of what's going on. talk a little bit about my DJI problems. I'm interested to test these props out, see how strong they are, see if there's an actual difference between flying with those and flying with the props. So just a reminder to everyone listening, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to check these out live. If you got knowledge and value out of today's video, you have any questions, make sure to hit that comment below, write to me, let me know. Any ideas for a future podcast, let me know there as well. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell if you got value out of today's video. And yeah, thank you for everyone who did join me live. Until next time, my name's Jeff Fagan. Keep creating, guys. And while I look for my outro video, I will see y'all in the next one.